Now, aid agencies are warning of worsening conditions for Congolese refugees in Burundi as the World Food Programme plans to cut assistance from 75% to just 50% due to funding shortages. The move comes at a critical time with tens of thousands of refugees having fled renewed violence in eastern DRC and now living in already strained conditions. Refugees say the reduced support will not be enough to meet even their most basic needs, raising fears of a deepening humanitarian crisis. UNHCR says the situation is particularly concerning given that emergency settings typically require full assistance and not cuts. Brigitte Mukanga-Eno, who's the UN Refugee Agency's representative in Burundi, joins us on the line. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time and welcome.
Good evening, Mpho, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Perhaps let's start here. Just how serious is the situation tonight? Because, I think it's important for you to paint a picture for us on what life currently looks like for Congolese refugees arriving in Burundi.
Well, Mpho, as you know, at the end of last year, we had a big emergency situation in Burundi. Following the crisis in the eastern DR Congo, where we received here about 100,000 Congolese refugees from Congo. And these refugees have been settled in a site called Busuma. And at the beginning of the emergency, actually, we launched jointly with the government of Burundi an appeal for solidarity, an appeal for funding from various donors in order to address the needs of the refugees. That the appeal was around 33 million US dollars. But as of today, we are only around 30% of the response to this appeal, which for the funding received, it has enabled us actually to establish the site itself, to develop some very basic infrastructures for the refugees, like to provide the tents. But even these tents could not cover everyone. As of now, we are still at 50% of the refugees who have received a tent. And the rest of them who are still sleeping in the open are really facing challenges and a lot of challenges. And also among these refugees, we have more than 53% who are children who need, of course, education, but the children are also some of them came without their parents, what we call the unaccompanied minors, who are within the camp without any adult to take care of them. The challenges are quite many, but we need the support. The food ration itself, as you rightly said, WFP has just informed us that we are going to reduce even further from the 75% food ration provided, we are going down to 40%, which is really difficult for the refugees to survive here in Burundi.
Absolutely, especially the part where you say that among the refugees, more than 50% are children. That's a staggering amount. Beyond hunger, what secondary risks do food cuts create? Because one gets a sense that there'll be a ripple effect. We're talking malnutrition, disease outbreaks, school dropouts, especially looking at the number of children there.
Definitely. Without food, refugees are trying to develop some negative coping mechanism. Some of them going to the communities to try to get food from other people, the host communities' farms. And for the girls, unfortunately, some of them are trying to look for the food through exploitation. So these are the trends that we are observing now, very concerning, knowing also that among the refugees who came from the eastern DR Congo, many of them have witnessed violence. And we have cases of trauma, a high level of trauma among the refugees. And the psychosocial support is really needed. It's one of the gap where we do not have the necessary resources to address, to speak to the people who are traumatized by the violence they have witnessed in their country. Other challenges, of course, apart from the food, we mentioned education for the children. There are no schools around the settlement where the refugees are currently, which means that the children are spending their whole day idle, and the young people, who are quite many, the majority of these refugees in the camp, are idle in the camps. So all of that leads to very negative coping mechanisms, which need to be addressed.
Absolutely. As you paint that harrowing picture, one, of course, wants to get a full understanding of why support is being reduced at a time when needs are still so high.
The point, Paul, is that UNHCR in particular, we were heavily reliant on funding from the US for many years. And as of last year, there's a big shift in the policies, as you know. So that gap till now has not been able to be bridged. And the other donors that we have, the European Union in particular, and many countries from the Europe group, are those who are providing the support. And this year, exceptionally, the DRC itself also provided some food support to the refugees, but it's still not enough. So the big gap is really coming from the withdrawal of the biggest donor that we had in the past, in order to cater for the needs of the refugees.
So, in this instance, what role do you think African governments and regional organizations should be playing alongside international donors, especially at a time like this where, there are cuts and the cuts have a drastic impact?
Definitely. The African Union and Burundi, actually, the President Ndayishimiye of Burundi this year is the chairman of the African Union. And he has been undertaking already a number of initiatives to his peers to make sure that the political solutions are found to the crisis, because beyond the humanitarian assistance which is required, what refugees actually need is a durable solution. They would like to go back to their home, but because of the crisis, it cannot happen for the majority of them. Although we have started with a small number of those who are coming, like from Uvira town, which has been cleared around April. So we started with small number of people going back to Uvira, but for the majority, their areas are still unsafe and they cannot go back. So African solutions need to be found. African leaders need really to find solutions to the crisis, but at the same time, they have to provide financial support to the refugees and displaced persons currently, since we cannot others there are other crises today which are drifting the attention of other member states of the UN.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. African leaders must find solutions and, of course, rally their heads together to find the finances which are needed for a harrowing story here. Aid agencies are warning of the worsening conditions for Congolese refugees in Burundi. That was Brigitte Mukanga-Eno, who's the UN Refugee Agency's representative in Burundi.